Tonight, Roostad prevails. BC's Conservative leader holds off a group of dissidents, including Jordan Keeley. Balanced budget. The city of Fort St. John can now balance the books. And grim anniversary. It's been 2 years since a Dawson Creek woman was killed in Mexico. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with the BC Conservatives holding their annual general meeting over the weekend in Nanaimo. And while divisions in the party remain hostile, party leader John Roostad came out on top, with members voting in his slate of candidates for executive positions. The meeting sets the direction of the party and elects future board of directors and decides on policy objectives. Among those who held on to their position was party president Isha Este, who faced a challenge from 4 rivals. Delegates voted on 19 separate policy declarations covering economic prosperity, financial management, health, education, public safety, and more. All passed with majority support, including a vote to repeal the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and opposition to SOGI policy being taught in classrooms. However, some have accused Roostad of watering down conservative values, and that includes MLA Jordan Keeley, who in December endorsed a letter calling into question the party's commitment to core conservative values. He was also one of 5 conservative MLAs who voted down a motion condemning Donald Trump's tariffs and retaliatory action. Roostad downplayed the divide, brushing them off as, quote, family issues within the party. A leadership review is expected to be held sometime this fall. BC's budget will be unveiled this week, and experts are calling it one of the most consequential budgets in recent history. It's the first budget to be delivered with the backdrop of rapidly escalating trade tensions with the United States. The Business Council of BC says its members are anxious about tariff uncertainties. Many business owners are looking for the NDP government to walk the talk in strengthening BC as a place for new investment. Tuesday's budget is shaping up to have 3 broad takeaways: a record-setting deficit, large pots of unallocated cash to respond to American tariffs, and a protective barrier around core government services. Well, the city of Fort St. John has amended the latest draft of its 5-year budget plan to reflect an increase in PRRD grant funding. The grant provided through the Peace River Agreement has increased by just over $1.5 million in 2025. The city will now receive nearly $29 million this year from the agreement. That increase helped balance a budget shortfall of $450,000 from initial estimates. The municipality is unable to operate at a shortfall under the Local Government Act. Council recommendations were also sought, with suggestions made to reallocate underutilized funds. Now, overall, the city's operating budget will top $121 million. Of that, more than half will be capital expenses offset by city revenues. A public consultation on the budget will be held March 10th at City Hall. Well, 2 years ago today, a 23-year-old Dawson Creek woman was killed in Mexico. Kiera Agnew was in Playa del Carmen in March of 2023 to celebrate her 24th birthday with her boyfriend. The pair were found lying on the floor of the hotel janitor closet. Kiera was pronounced dead at the scene while her boyfriend was taken into custody. Her boyfriend, also from Dawson Creek, was found not guilty of femicide in a Mexican court. Michelle, Tiana, and Kiera's aunt, Caitlin, visited the resort where she died as part of their healing process and took comfort from seeing the region. Well, hospitality workers at a 3rd oil and gas camp have voted overwhelmingly in favor of job action. Employees at the ConocoPhillips work camp near Wanawan voted 100% in favor of strike action. The 50 culinary, housekeeping, and janitorial workers are employed by Horizon North Camp Services. They're demanding better wages, safe work loads, travel pay, and improved benefits. It's the 3rd campsite where Horizon North workers have voted in favor of job action. Last month, over 60 workers at Cobbs Creek and Atachi Lodges both announced possible strike action over wages and working conditions. Well, as we wait to learn the full extent of Donald Trump's tariffs tomorrow, some more bad news for the BC economy. The United States announcing today it's going after Canadian softwood lumber once again. The U.S. Department of Commerce has issued an anti-dumping rate of 20.07%. That's 3 times the 7.66% established 3 years ago. And it's in addition to the 6.74% countervailing duties. All told, levies now make up 27%. even before Trump's threatened tariffs. The BC Lumber Trade Council says the hike is unjustified. They say it'll negatively impact forest workers in British Columbia and homeowners in the United States. Another earthquake has rattled BC's south coast early this morning. The 4.1 magnitude quake struck near the town of Sydney on Vancouver Island. It was felt as far away as the Lower Mainland, and it marks the third seismic event near the coast in less than 2 weeks. There are no reports of any damage. Well, next door in Alberta, the wildfire season is officially underway. As of today, there are 8 active wildfires in the province, all of which are under control. A fire guard project is underway in several areas of the province, including near the Jasper town site. Last summer's fire in Jasper is the second costliest fire in Canadian history, behind only the 2016 fire in Fort McMurray. But Alberta wildfire officials are expecting better conditions this year. A memorial service was held in Mayerthorpe today. It's been 20 years since 4 RCMP members were killed in the line of duty. Back on March the 3rd, 2005, 4 Mounties were shot and killed on a rural property just outside of town. The 4 officers were called to a farm following reports of a marijuana grow-op and stolen vehicle. The property belonged to James Roscoe, a notorious criminal in the area. Roscoe then shot and killed himself. Constables Peter Scheiman, Leo Johnston, Anthony Gordon, and Brock Myro would come to be known as the Fallen 4. The RCMP say it's important Canadians honor them every year. And Mounties add, the day was one of the most tragic in its history, and that the legacy of the 4 live on in every officer who still serves. And one of Premier Danielle Smith's own MLAs says he will not support the Alberta government's latest budget unless major changes are made. Lesser Slave Lake MLA Scott Sinclair says he's furious at the amount of money that's been set aside for Calgary and Edmonton, including funding for a new event space near the Edmonton Oilers downtown arena. Sinclair says those kind of spending commitments mean rural infrastructure like highway and healthcare facilities will fall further behind. The United Conservative Party backbencher says rural healthcare has never been worse in Alberta. He adds it'll continue to deteriorate without significant investment from the province. Alberta's budget this year comes with a $5.2 billion deficit. There isn't much progress to report from a weekend of talks between Canada Post and its workers. These mediated negotiations are part of the order that sent workers back on the job last December. In a statement, Canada Post said workers failed to acknowledge the significant challenges facing the Crown Corporation. Well, the union put out its own statement accusing Canada Post of pushing for rollbacks that would threaten full-time jobs. Talks are happening as the union challenges Ottawa's back-to-work order. The race to replace Justin Trudeau's entering its final phase, with the next Liberal leader set to be chosen this Sunday. Voting is currently underway, and the party will declare the winner at a convention in Ottawa. Liberal Party leadership candidates Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gould, and Frank Baylis are campaigning across the country in an effort to get out the vote. The Liberal Party says 400,000 people have registered to vote. The party is using a ranked ballot system to choose their next leader. There's no room left for a deal. The U.S. president made that clear this afternoon. There's no reprieve this time for Canada or Mexico to stave off tariffs. At 12 a.m. Eastern, unless there's an 11th hour solution, Canada will be dealing with 25% across the board and 10% levies on Canadian energy. CTV's Judy Trin has more from Washington.
Before he was president, Donald Trump was a reality TV star who understood the power of a cliffhanger. He gave Canada a 30-day pause in early February. Since then, Canadian officials and businesses have been parsing his every word to see if tariffs could be avoided. Now we know, despite what Canada has done to stop the illegal flow of fentanyl to the U.S., Donald Trump says, point blank, it's not enough.
On the tariffs, is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take effect tomorrow?
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow. They can't come in and steal our money and steal our jobs and take our factories and take our businesses and expect not to be punished. And they're being punished by tariffs.
Canadian officials are frustrated. Last week, the public safety minister said there was irrefutable evidence that Canada was reducing the amount of fentanyl crossing the border. The amount of fentanyl seized in the U.S. at its northern border was equal to 19.5 kilograms. That's 0.2% of the amount of fentanyl that's smuggled into America. And of that amount, in the last month, U.S. data shows the seizures have gone down 90%. The federal government has also put in place a $1.3 billion border security plan. That includes Black Hawk helicopters, drones, and sniffer dogs. We've appointed a fentanyl czar and named 7 drug cartels as terrorist organizations. Despite the frustration, Foreign Minister Melanie Joly says Canada is ready to respond.
We know that we've answered questions that the Trump administration had regarding our efforts. And so in that sense, based on that, we're having constructive conversations, but I've said it to you many, many times, there's a level of unpredictability and chaos that comes out of the Oval Office, and we will be dealing with it. If Trump is imposing tariffs, we're ready. We are ready with $155 billion worth of tariffs, and we're ready with the first tranche of tariffs, which is $30 billion, which is already known.
We don't know exactly what percentage of tariffs will be imposed on Tuesday. It could be 25% or 10% to mirror what was imposed on China. But in an executive order, the White House said that even relatively cheap products, so-called de minimis shipments to the U.S. valued at $800 or less, will also be subjected to tariffs. The announcement will go Tuesday, March 4th, the same day that Donald Trump makes a speech about the State of the Union. Judy Trin, CTV News, Washington.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with King Charles at Sandringham Estate today to discuss a number of issues with the monarch. So far, there's been no statement from Buckingham Palace or the Prime Minister's office about the specifics of the discussion. Yesterday, Trudeau stated he would speak with the King about matters of importance to Canadians, specifically U.S. President Donald Trump's threats of annexation. King Charles, who is officially Canada's head of state, has not weighed in on those threats. And the Prime Minister was in London to attend an emergency summit on Ukraine. Trudeau says Canada is not yet willing to commit to a plan to put Canadian boots on the ground to secure peace in Ukraine.
We're not going to get ahead of the discussions on how to keep a peace that isn't yet in place, but Canada will be there and is open to doing what is necessary.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says a group of European leaders will form a coalition of the willing to defend Ukraine. The weekend summit in London followed Friday's disastrous meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, U.S. President Donald Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance. There was no U.S. representation at the London summit. And Donald Trump has had more sharp words for the president of Ukraine today after Volodymyr Zelensky said the end of the war with Russia is very, very far away. Well, Trump called it the worst statement Zelensky could make, the U.S. president adding, "This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has American backing." Zelensky says he wants to work with the United States, adding, "It's very important that we try to make our diplomacy really substantive to end the war." Global Affairs says 2 Canadians have died in Mexico, but has not disclosed many details, citing privacy concerns. In a statement, the department says it is aware of the deaths and consular officials are in contact with local authorities. Media reports say 2 Canadians were found dead inside a home near Mazatlan, while another person was sent to hospital with injuries. The Pope is alert and resting after suffering 2 separate respiratory failures. People left flowers and candles outside the Rome hospital where the Pope has suffered a new breathing crisis. The Vatican says Pope Francis is back to using an oxygen mask and ventilator. The setback comes 17 days after the 88-year-old was admitted to hospital with a complex lung infection. And firefighters are scrambling to contain raging wildfires that erupted in North and South Carolina. The largest fire near Myrtle Beach exploded in size overnight, forcing people to flee their homes. Gusty winds and unusually dry conditions are fueling the flames. South Carolina has declared a state of emergency, and a statewide ban on outdoor fires remain in effect. All right, stay tuned. I'll be right back with a look at weather, but as we head to break, here's a look at today's closing market numbers.